This is a rough draft list. This is the first iteration of my graveyard cube list. So we're going to kind of see what it's like. This pack has a lot of good cards in it. It's got a Jace, which I'm kind of attracted to. It's got Ral's Outburst. Scab Ruinator is also quite good. And then if we wanted to play mono red, we could go into that, which could be a pretty viable option with just taking the Direfleet Daredevil. This is not a very good green card. This is not a very good white card, so I'm kind of leaning toward red or blue cards here. There's also a Mutavault, which is super open. I think I could take the Direfleet Daredevil, because if Alesha doesn't wheel, then I can take the Mutavault and vice versa. Okay. This pack is kind of weak for us. We can take the Scuzzback Marauders as just a 5/2 guy. Take Orscale Guardian too. Or we could just take like Visions of Beyond and be in like blue-red. We could take Moldraff Monstrosity and just abandon this and maybe go into a kind of Reanimator strategy. We could take Unesh. Migratory Route is also kind of safe. I'll take Visions of Beyond, because neither of these is like particularly good. And both is relatively likely to wheel, so... Firewing Phoenix and Dismissive Pyromancer are both decent. Grimoire of the Dead is really slow, but it's it's pretty excellent when it comes to late game. I think we could take Shimmerscale Drake here. It's between that and the Phoenix, I think, for me. Grimoire of the Dead is still pretty good, but if we're going to go into Izzet, I like the Drake fairly well, and I think Firewing Phoenix is likely to wheel. We don't necessarily have to, though, and we could just take this Firewing Phoenix. We can take Battlefield Forge here. That leaves us open to being like 3-color or something, if that's what makes sense. Ral's Outburst is fine. It really depends on if we think that we'd be better off Izzet. I kind of think we do. I kind of think we would be better off Izzet. This is a really powerful Izzet card, but you gotta exile 3 creature cards, so it's pretty conditional. I'll take the Outburst. I think it's fine. Unesh is pretty decent. So if we end up playing like a kind of slower Izzet deck, I think this is pretty reasonable. Alright, Shimmerscale Drake. I think that's better than Dismissive Pyromancer, because we can cycle it early. If we end up playing like a Jeskai control deck, that's possible. Alright, so we got a last pick. Scab Ruinator there. Not super exciting. I kind of want to take this Graphstone. Graphstone is just a really flexible card. It's going to help us get to these big things a little bit faster. So I kind of like that. Chandra is really good, I think. We could use some fixing, but I think we'll get there eventually. Harvest Pyre and Sphinx of Ithune, and Firebolt. All of these are good. X cards. I think I'm going to go with Firebolt. I think either of these could wheel. Firebolt's just a really efficient card. Ooh, a Snapcaster too. Yeah, that's a really easy pickup, to Snapcaster. We don't have a ton of graveyard stuff yet that we can cast, but Syncopate is good. I'd also take K Command if we wanted to go into Grixis. That could be a reasonable choice. I'm trying to think of... So if I go into Grixis, we could maybe hit that red-black land that we just saw. We don't really have good fixing yet, though, and there's no reason to not really take Syncopate, I think. Alright, well, we did get there, so I'll take it to leave that option open. I don't think Diluvian Primordial is that good for me to take it. Not in this style of deck. This style of deck is a little bit more It's a little bit more efficient than that. I'm not casting 7 drops, casting 6 drops. Cheaper, more gooder. Yeah, so we've got Jeskai and Grixis as options. But I'd really like to stay in just Izzet. Some decent cards here. We've got Havengul Runebinder, which is like a fine late game, like mid game kind of payoff, making tokens each turn by exiling stuff from your graveyard. It's Compulsive Research is probably just the best card in the pack. And then Gibbering Fiend and Thunderblade Charge are both like good cards. I kind of want the Thunderblade Charge on the wheel, but we'll see what happens. I think this is our safest pick. Same is true of Searing Spear. We want to wheel the Heartpiercer Manticore here, but Searing Spear is just too good to not take, I think. Alright, Shivan Reef, we finally got some fixing. There's an Expunge here that could pull us into Grixis, but I want the fixing more. Enigmatic Drake is a good payoff for being Izzet and a nice beater early on. We've got how many instants and sorceries so far? 5 instants and 2 sorceries, so we're doing pretty well in that regard. I want to take the Thunderblade Charge here. It's a pretty good card. Alright, so our deck is fleshing out to be pretty nice. This one has kind of the spells matter, right, in terms of what it does with the graveyard. It's kind of like, I care about the kind of spells that are in my graveyard. I'll be casting a lot of spells. That's kind of what Izzet generally does with graveyard synergies. One thing, like this cube, so it's linked in the comments below. This cube is aimed at like kind of utilizing the graveyard in a multitude of different ways. If you couldn't tell from the cards that are in the packs, I should probably take more time going over each one, since they are likely mostly unknown cards. So Heartpiercer Manticore allows us to sack a creature and kill something on ETB. It's a May, so otherwise it's just a 4/3, so that's a pretty good pickup. Falconwrath Gorger is fine. We're probably not playing it in this deck, but it could be played. Weatherseed Totem, I think, is nice just as a mana rock, to help us get to our bigger cards. But Abandoned Sarcophagus gives us some decent utility. Let's see what kind of cycling stuff we've got. So far we've just got Shimmerscale Drake and Lonely Sandbar, and you can only cast cards with it, so it's not that good for us yet. And this is pack 3, so we got 3 more packs. I'll take the Weatherseed Totem. It's more likely to be played in our deck. Gibbering Fiend is a nice pickup. There's nothing in this pack for us, so I guess we just take the land. We could take Street Wraith, just as like a Gitaxian Probe. It's probably fine. Avaricious Dragon is pretty nice. So the rest of this pack is not in our colors. Tormenting Voice is also pretty good though, and I think it's slightly more flexible than Avaricious Dragon, so I'll take that. I think this is going to come back. Take the Lightning Strike. Fiery Temper or Logic Knot are both good on the wheel. And at this point, we could maybe just be mono red. So what does it look like if we are mono red? Got 14 cards in our... Yeah, that's not going to work. That won't work, so I think Evolving Wilds is the better pick here. This pack I don't care about, so I'll just let it time out. It doesn't matter what I pick. That's assuming I don't get all this stuff back in. I'd rather have my deck constructed. Alright, well, we did it. So we're already at 24 playables. We'll just take this land in case we want to go Jeskai. Avaricious Dragon is fine. Fiery Temper is fine. Dissipate over Hellspark Elemental, I think. Yeah, I don't think we need these, like, really expensive things. Deck is pretty lean. I could see cutting, like, Avaricious Dragon for the 3/4, since it doesn't force me to discard every turn. Even though that could be an advantage, I think in our deck it's not. Dark Dwellers is very good. Thought Scour and Thirst for Knowledge are also fine, but I think Dark Dwellers is really powerful. This is a pretty efficient card to exile a creature from a graveyard 3/4. I'll play the Grim Lavamancer for now, but Firebird is good. Temple of Epiphany would be really good for us, though. I think that we've got so many playables already that we can just take the Temple, make our fixing better. Alright, Ravaging Blaze and Ral. Yeah, Ral's really good. So is Ravaging Blaze, but I think that Ral is kind of in line with what this deck wants to do. Thirst for Knowledge is decent. I'll take this for the sideboard in case we like queue up against something that's a little bit faster. I kind of like Lightning Axe. Helps us deal with bigger creatures, which we're going to naturally struggle with, being red. Firebird is pretty hard for us to resurrect, too, since it costs 6. It does come to the battlefield, though, which is better than Firewing Phoenix. And this has haste. That could be kind of nice if we, like... What does it look like if we do mono red now? It's not that bad. Ravaging Blaze versus Loxodon Warhammer. Loxodon Warhammer is just really good at... I mean, Ravaging Blaze is really good too, though. This is tough. I'm going to go with the Blaze. Even though this is kind of a grindier meta game than I'm used to, I think this is just a more flexible card overall. I like having interaction and removal, and that definitely helps us get there. I'll take the Vivid Crag out of this pack. There's still a pretty good possibility and likelihood that we're going to play Izzet. I like Direct Current here. Forgotten Cave is also fine. I'm going to go with the Direct Current. Collective Defiance is fine as well. It might actually be better than the... Yeah, Defiance is better than Current. I think Hollow One is, like, pretty good. There's also Jace, which is fine if we end up red-blue. Swiftwater Cliffs is probably what we want on the wheel, so what we need to decide is if we want to be Izzet or if we want to be mono red. This is pack 6. This is the last pack, so I don't think we're going to get there on mono red. But I also don't know if Jace is worth the double blue pip, because if we went, like if we just splash for a couple things that are pretty flexible like this, we don't really want double blue, so I think Hollow One is probably better. Just in that it doesn't force us to play heavily into blue. This pack is interesting, and I think we can take Narcolepsy. So, because I think we are going to be Izzet. You can kind of go back and forth here, but I think it's worth just playing the Izzet list. And I think Narcolepsy is just probably good enough as a universal kill effect to make it into our deck. This is fine, but we're probably not running it. You take Forgotten Cave over Broken Ambitions, though Ambitions is fine. But just having more utility, like all these cards that allow you to cycle and basically get ahead on mana, or get ahead on draw, are quite good, and their flexibility is like pretty well received. So if I did this, Swiftwater Cliffs came back, that's not surprising. Here we've got Ash Zealot versus Viashino Sandsprinter. Now I think in our deck we're the most likely to probably be on flashbacky stuff, so I kind of want to take the Sand Spinner. Alright, so that's the whole draft. Don't want that. Alright, so our fixing is excellent, by the way. We've got 7 lands and 5 of them fix for our colors. So we should be able to play pretty much anything we want to. I want to play Narcolepsy. I probably want to play Hollowed One. I want to play Enigma Drake, and I think that's it. So we may not need Corrupted Graphstone here, since most of our curve is actually like pretty low to the ground. I guess a lot of our creatures aren't, but a lot of our creatures also have, like our more expensive creatures also have cycling. This just helps me see. I want to be at like 15 lands with this deck, I think. So don't really want to be on Falconwrath Gorger here. I do think that Visions of the Beyond is slightly better than that. There's also Thirst for Knowledge that's probably better than that. But Visions just being a way of like getting ahead into my deck is kind of nice. Could also run Street Wraith as another version of a card that does that. But I don't like that it's always 2 damage to my face. I don't have anything to discard this Fiery Temper with, so it might just be too inefficient. Thunderblade Charge has additional flexibility. Oh, I guess I do have the Tormenting Voice and the Collective Defiance and Avaricious Dragon. Okay, so I've got some stuff that can discard it. Avaricious Dragon actually may not make the cut here. That's probably the cut, yeah, because it makes me discard things, and I don't really want to be doing that. It's fine with like the Firewing Phoenix and all that stuff, but I'd rather just cast my cards, I think, in this deck. Okay, let's try it. It says 4 of each. I think that's incorrect. I think we want to be on a little bit higher red. Let's do it. Yeah, so out of our sideboard, we can become a little bit more reactive. So we've got 2 counter spells, and we can go a little bit slower. Which is kind of nice. Most of our deck is geared toward winning pretty quickly here. Still pretty mid-range, but our threats are just pretty efficient. They, you know, like Goblin Dark Dwellers being something that comes down pretty early-ish, right? Turn 5, and gets back a spell is great. Snapcaster is very efficient. Just overall, we have a pretty nice-looking deck. There is the problem of Ravaging Blaze. So, like, how good is Dark Dwellers? It gets back... Oh, no, it gets back a ton of stuff. It gets back, like, Collective Defiance, Firebolt, etc. So, I think we're in a pretty good space with this list. Alright, so we won the die roll. And this hand looks good. Just going to lead off with a Lavamancer. If my opponent does nothing on 1, like, this is probably getting in for damage most of the time. This is an instant speed cycle. So at a minimum, I get to draw a card here and then play Enigma Drake on 3, which is fine. It's a 1/4 body. Nice. Alright, so my opponent's on like Selesnya, good stuff. Oh man, that's pretty good. Bant? Alright. I mean, Time Wipe's good. But he's just going to take the Goyf to his hand. Yup. Alright, Harvest Pyre is pretty decent. What's in his graveyard? For 7 mana, we can blow up the board. He can reanimate, or he can dredge his Golgari Brownstone if he wants. He chose not to, but it's notable that oh, he chose to do that, yeah. So he's going to gain 2 life, which is then going to kind of mitigate what I'm doing, right, with my board. So I am going to need to work a little bit harder to kill him. Goyf. We may be punished for playing like 2 quick a mid-range deck, like too tempo-oriented a mid-range deck. I forget, did we skip the Lava Axe? I don't remember. So, if we... Well, we can commune with the gods to dig for something, but it only gets a creature or enchantment, which we don't run a lot of. I mean, I guess we could hit like a pretty reasonable creature. That's probably fine, because then we can like Heart Piercer Manticore as well. Alright, I'll take Hollow One, suppose. And now we can Harvest Pyre this. One, two, so now it's a 2/4. Good job. That's a 5/6 now. I'll get in for 2. Yeah, if we exile everything from our graveyard, this will die because it'll be a 4/5 because he won't have a creature in his graveyard. That does mean that this shrinks to a 0/4, but that's fine. Oh, it'll be a 1/4 actually. Okay, it's fine. And now we pass. I think we'll probably cycle the Hollow One. But I'm not sure about that. Since it's also just a fine play next turn, there's not really a reason to do that. Woof. That's a lot of bears. Alright. Yeah, I will cycle the Hollow One.
Alright, so we draw a Shivan Reef, play that, cycle this Forgotten Cave, we draw a Firewing Phoenix. Alright, so I think we just play the Shimmerscale Drake.
Just get you for 1. Yeah, Grizzly Fate's pretty sweet. Oh shoot, is he gonna play it again? That'd actually be sweet. That would be really hard to beat. Because it's just a lot of pressure. Oh man. It's so big. Alright, yeah. Our Narcolepsy got milled, so we're not in the best spot here.
Alright, so we're gonna play out this Phoenix. We'll get in the air for 4. The plan is just to chunk the 10/10 and like maybe Grim Lavamancer down one of the 2/2s.
Just like beating down with evasive guys is the key, it seems.
Alright, so we're gonna block the big boy with our first striker. We're gonna block nothing else. We're just gonna use the Grim Lavamancer to kill off a 2/2. This is going to give us our best out next turn because we have lethal with the Heart Piercer Manticore. So my opponent has to do something here to remove a creature from combat. That's his only way of winning.
Okay. So he's got a flying boy that can... Well, we'll just eat it with our Masticore. Alright. Feels like the wrong one, but sure. Big oof. Actually sucks quite a bit. Can't really Harvest Pyre very effectively here. But we can Masticore pretty well. And the question is what we want to sack. I think we sack probably the Drake. So if we do that, we kill this, and then we can get in for 1. We take some damage from this, or sorry, from these. We block this with the Heartpiercer Manticore. We could zap one of these, or we could just block one, put him to 7, and then I like just sacking the Drake here. Actually, no, we should sack. Yeah, we should sack the Drake, because it's not really contributing here.
I didn't really think through my turn there, though, as much as I should have. I should have attacked with the Drake first and then cast the Heartpiercer Manticore, so that's unfortunate. We missed a point of damage.
Well, if he attacks with all... Uh-oh. Alright, so I'll block this. Exile these 2 to kill this.
Alright, so Lavamancer dies. We go to 4. Okay, he plays a 1/1 double strike. I guess we Harvest Pyre the 1/1, and then we have a decent amount of blockers-ish. I mean, it's like as good as it's going to get, right? You can eternalize that next turn, I guess.
I think we lose. This thing's freaking really good. We had no removal for it. Well, actually... Okay. If I attack with everything, he chumps this, double blocks that. I can ambush Viper this. I think it's correct to attack with everything here, since I'm not winning anyway most of the time, so I have to like put the onus on my opponent to stop what I'm doing. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely want more counter magic. Compulsive research is probably good too. Okay, so things we want to cut. I think Fiery Temper is probably just a little bit too slow. Same thing with Thunderblade Charge. And Visions Beyond was not terribly impressive, so I'll just go with that. Well, it got worse. We could maybe keep this and just bin Ral. I don't think that's right, though. Okay, so we'll put Bolt and Bolt and maybe Daredevil. I don't know. They're both kind of... Just put both of those on the bottom. Alright. Start off with a land. I don't really want that to stay around. It's really good at, like, binning things and then reanimating them, so I'm just gonna... And it also makes dudes every turn, which is not good for me. 2, 3. If we do feel like we need to, we can Narcolepsy the Goyf, but there's far scarier things to Narcolepsy in his deck, as we found out last game. Like, potentially that. I'm just going to bin the Dire Fleet here. I don't think my opponent would block, would he? This is a pretty valuable creature. I could just turn it off, though, forever. I'm not gonna. Because I can also kill the Goyf at the moment. Sure. Oh, no, I can't, because now the Tormenting Voice is in there. Alright, well, then I'll just cast Hollow One. Yep. It's rude.
Alright, so Goblin Dark Dweller is obviously a great draw. Allows us to cast that and kill the Boneyard Scourge.
I actually wanted to cast the Tormenting Voice here, I think. I don't need the Narcolepsy that badly. And having 2 more cards would be really nice. I just want to be able to cycle that Lonely Sandbar, so... Currently I can eat the Goyf with my Dark Dwellers, so that's kind of nice. If my opponent has another O-Ring type effect, I'll be in for a bad time. Oh, that puts an instant in the yard, huh? That's nifty.
Alright, Druid Evolving Wilds, play that out. And we'll just flash back Firebolt to kill the Boneyard Worm. This is huge because the Boneyard Worm is like the Ghoul Caller tree, where it's like this huge threat that costs not a lot of mana. So being able to deal with it helps us greatly. And now we have a Menace that has 4 power and toughness, and we can start trying to race him.
There are no lands in any graveyards yet, so when I pop this will become a 4/5. So we don't really want to do that because then it trades with this. Alright, there's another 4/4. It's a 3/3 right now, right? Yeah. Yikes, it's just an 0/4 here. It's not very good.
Alright, so we cycled in Forgotten Cave. Let's cycle again. Alright, so Grim Lavamancer. We can just play the Lavamancer and the Drake here. I don't really see a reason not to. Lavamancer is really going to help me kind of grind out this game. So, and we just have to be kind of aggressive too. I think we just swing with the Goblin Dark Dwellers. We may block with our 0/4 here, but kind of depends on what my opponent does.
Alright, so if I can get my opponent to aggressively attack into me, we can potentially get there with, let's see, this is 6, 7, 8. It's not quite. If we draw like another, if we draw one of our bolts, did I cut bolts? I cut 3 mana bolts. Still probably good enough here. That could have been questionable.
Okay, so we make the obvious block and just let our Drake die, because it's not really doing much here anyway. Our opponent deployed no other threat, so now we can get in with the Goblin Dark Lords again, which is huge. And we draw another flying creature, which is decent as well. Turn our boy sideways, pass the turn.
That could have +1/+1 and yeah, it's already got trample, so could have +1/+1 soon, but all we have to do is chump this Tarmogoyf, I think, and we're in the clear for the most part. He could do some fancy stuff with like draw a card, gain 2 with Golgari Brave or Golgari Brown Scale. The card is really good. Sure. So I'll block. Does he have Delirium? Yeah, okay. Come on now. Alright, so I'll block here.
This allows us to win next turn because he won't have a flying blocker. We have 7 damage on board. And my opponent conceded.
Alright, so here we are for round 2. Unfortunately, my round 1 opponent left after game 2. And this hand is but we can keep it just because we have the Visions of Beyond.
Okay, Temple of Deceit, sure.
Yeah, just gonna cycle. Yay, we found a second land. Look at that, pure skill. Yeah, we can just play this so that we can, it's negative tempo here. It's negative tempo, but it allows us to play Chandra next turn, which is really good. Alright. Opponent ramps with Edge Bottom. Alright, well, we hit the land anyway, but it'd be wrong to think that because we hit the land, we shouldn't have played that order. It's still the correct order. Okay.
So we're just going to do short-term Rabble Master mode. Get in for 2, pass the turn.
Got a decent amount of burn to close out the game, too, which is notable.
Okay, so we draw tap land. It's going to start off by zeroing Chandra and attacking.
Alright, so now I'll just play my Swiftwater Cliffs, play Grim Lavamancer, and hold up Searing Spear.
Alright, Fact Eviction, that's fine. See what the pile looks like.
Give them all lands or all creatures, I think is fine. Yep, that seems about right. And if he's playing his turn to play Darksteel Ingot this turn, then I'm not that worried about it. Because my follow-up turn is like, I just Searing Spear his face, get in for 2 more. He's at 11. I also have the Row's Outburst. Alright, Nemesis Immortals is pretty good. It's a card that we gotta like look out for. But I'm just gonna Searing Spear face.
Yep, and again, we don't have enough yet with the Flashback Searing Spear to win the game, so we're just going to make the same play. We'll take the Chandra, get in for 2, and pass back to my opponent.
We've got the Collected Defiance and the Row's Outburst to go face as well here. You do have to cast whatever you do on Chandra, so we'll need to like cast Rowell's Outburst. That puts him to 8. We do this, that puts him to 6. This is 3. I think it's lethal, right? So Rowell's Outburst puts him to 8. Grim Lavamancer puts him to 6. Steering Spear from the Yard puts him to 3, and this, yeah, so that's lethal. Provided he doesn't have counter magic, we should win here. Okay.
Yeah, Kiora just not doing enough here to protect my opponent's face. It's almost as though Planeswalkers are not nearly as tempo positive as people seem to think they are. So we're just going to Izzet Bolt his face, his Rowell's Bolt, and then make the play that we wanted to play the whole time, and that should win the game.
Okay, so I want to go face.
There isn't any counter magic at 1 CMC in the cube, so this resolves and we should win.
Alright, so out of the sideboard against this matchup, I feel pretty good about our main board. The one thing that I would want is maybe another flying creature, like Avaricious Dragon is pretty decent, but it's also a card that, like maybe Unesh is slightly better than Avaricious Dragon since it doesn't force us to discard every turn. Or just like a Syncopate could be nice. But I think overall this is fine, so I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so we've got 1 land in our hand. It can cast the Visions Beyond, so I'm going to keep it. We're on the draw. We've got a good chance of drawing a second land. It's pretty far from perfect, though. This could be a lot better. But I don't really want to risk not having enough cards to really play my deck effectively. Yep. Alright, that's a 3rd land, so that counts. Keep it, we can cycle the hollow one. That's pretty good.
So yeah, as you all can see, the tempo difference between this cube and my normal cube is vast. This plays at a slower pace, and that's why it's a slower environment.
Cycles Hieroglyphic Illumination.
In terms of game design, I still want tempo to be present, but I want card advantage in a slower environment to kind of be the centerpiece of this environment, which is different from my other cube. Gigapede's pretty scary here. It's a giant creature that I can't target, and I can't block it really with my hand.
And we whiffed on land. We could just discard everything and draw that many cards. A lot of this stuff does come back. Sure. I'll go ahead and play the tap land here.
So one thing to note is that all these tap lands create huge tempo problems because you essentially pay a mana to fix your mana or to just have like a cycle land. So that's something that I may change in order to create a more tempo-rich environment.
We probably want to bring in Syncopate. That was probably incorrect of me not to bring it in. Yeah, no, we're not beating that. Alright. Syncopate over probably... Maybe we don't need Rowell. He's probably too slow. Let's try that.
Alright. Yeah, this is an easy keep. We've got turn 1 Grim Lavamancer, we've got Good Fixing, we've got Tormenting Voice plus Madness Bolt, so this is a pretty good situation for us.
We've got a sweet Fiery Temper plus Tormenting Voice synergy in this hand, so like my next turn I really want to just cycle the I just want to cycle Hollowed One here. Yep, Edge of Autumn on 2 every time. There's like not that many ramp sources in the cube. They may need to be cut actually, because they do enable green to get ahead even more than it kind of already does. I think it's got some of the strongest stuff in it. I kind of don't want that on top. Okay. Close window, please. Alright.
Alright, so champion comes in. He discards Moldgraft, Monstrosity, and Genesis. Alright, so that's pretty good. He's going to be able to get some stuff back from his graveyard. We're going to try to beat him before that happens.
So I'm going to play the land first so we can go Tormenting Voice, discard this, cast it for its madness cost, face, and then I can pass the turn. This allows me to hold up the Grim Lavamancer for the Champion of Wits, but I also don't need to, so I'll just kind of wait.
Okay, my opponent plays an Ingot. I think I'm just going to pass and keep up Ravaging Blaze. This allows me to do damage with the Blaze with Spell Mastery.
Searing Spear is an excellent pickup. Do I want to attack with this Grim Lavamancer? I don't think so. I'm just going to wait. We could potentially want to use its other side. I could have also probably cast the Firebolt there. That could have been loose. Just go face. But we're going to go face with the Searing Spear, so it's probably fine.
So this isn't that bad. A Kiora, because we're just kind of relying on our burn to actually just kill our opponent's face. And I think that's kind of our route to victory here. And I just kind of think that Kiora is much lower than that.
Alright, Mouth to Feed. Alright, it's pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Sorry, I meant to have that open. I'm going to Searing Spear the face. I'm going to exile 2 cards from my graveyard to kill Champion of Wits. Maybe that's right. Maybe I should go face. If I go face, yeah. Alright, so I'm going to play a land. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That allows me to deal 3 to this and to his face, putting him to 7. Grim Lavamancer puts him to 5. Firebolt. Yeah. So this has been a really cool game. My opponent is on like kind of a grindier deck, so they're looking to like win the mid to late game and doing pretty well with that. Right, the game 2 is disgusting. I mean, I whiffed on land, but I'll give him all creatures and all land again. The reason for this is because I think he'll greed out and take the creatures, and he's not able to cast any of those right now, so they don't really impact the board. I was correct, by the way. So this is going to basically just allow me to win with the burn that I have currently, I think. If I draw a land, I can go... Not quite. Okay. Oops. Get rid of the not Searing Spears.
This is me from the future. This is recorded in post. Essentially, this play is one that you would usually make in order to address a board state issue. But I actually have enough mana to cast Firebolt, use the Grim Lavamancer ability, and then Heartpiercer Manticore my opponent for lethal. So that was a misplay, even though it's usually the correct play.
Should have played that Vivid Crag. That was a mistake. I just was thinking I hadn't, or I was thinking I had already played my land. Grim Lavamancer is such a card, man. It's just so good. No, Kitchen Finks, no. Alright, that slows us down by a turn, but we can actually still win through that. If we find something else to put in our graveyard, yeah, that's all we really need. Or just a bolt off the top, like Thunderblade Charge is on the bottom, but, you know, if it weren't on the bottom. Sinks. Oh, okay. Weatherseed Treefolk, you got it. That does it, right? Not quite. But almost.
Alright, so we'll just target the Searing Spear. This is just pretty basic, do the most damage possible.
Alright, so now we can just block the Weatherseed Treefolk if he attacks with it. And that allows us to then Grim Lavamancer him to death. We tapped a little bit wrong. We should have tapped like one of these ones that doesn't hurt us, but that's okay. But those kind of minor misplays do cost you, so learn from me messing up. You should have tapped this and left one of these open. He can draw some number of cards. Looks like 2, 3. He can draw 3 cards here if he uses the mouth to feed, which could get him closer to something that can win the game.
Alright. Yep. Okay, so just as we drew it up, I'm just going to block this. And then we can respond by killing him if he tries to like gain life in any way. And if not, we can just wait till our turn.
That's fine. That's also fine.
Since he tapped out, we can just go for it.
Alright, so we got there in 3. Those were close. Yeah. Let's talk about it in the wrap-up section.
Alright, so this time our wrap-up section is going to have 2 distinct parts. The first of which is obviously critiquing gameplay, deck construction, etc., just as usual. And the other part is going to be talking about having a new cube, what the gameplay felt like, what I kind of desire more after my initial experience with a brand new cube, and kind of what I'm going to do to alter those things. So in terms of gameplay, obviously made some misplays in terms of just missing lethal. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think in general just being smarter about how I tap, how I sequence lands with tap lands, and things like that, how I keep hands. All those things are up for question here, and I think that there's a lot of things I could have done better in regard to any of those areas. I think in terms of deck construction, I should have had one more land. My curve basically started at 2. I didn't really have a lot at 1, so I think that starting my deck with 16 lands instead of 15 was probably optimal. And yeah, and I think also I could have in the draft taken a counterspell over Forgotten Cave. I think that was a mistake. And that's about as deep as I really want to get into the gameplay stuff, because I really want to talk about the cube design. But please let me know what you think about gameplay, draft, etc. in the comments below, because it helps me grow as a player, and it helps us have a conversation about cube.
So let's talk about a little bit about how that draft felt. I think that what I enjoyed about the draft was that tempo still did matter as an axis to fight on, not tempo of the deck, but tempo as an axis that I'm fighting on. That even in this very card advantage heavy cube, that I was able to have matches where tempo decided games, and where that was an important factor, while also card advantage came into play, right? Things like Grim Lavamancer, gaining residual value over the course of the game, won me a lot of games, and other things on my opponent's end, right? Like having ramp and then being able to play 4-drops on turn 3 and being ahead on tempo that way. So I thought that was a good dynamic, and I want to emphasize that. So one thing that I didn't like, that didn't play into having a tempo-oriented and card advantage-oriented cube, while those operate on different axes, and I can talk about that in a minute, was the tap land. So if we scroll down to my land section, there we go. They're all stacked on top of each other. Weird organization, but I'm still learning this site. So the only tap lands I've kept are these Vivids, because they are 5-color lands, and that's quite good. And then like 5-color, basically just 5-color dual lands, or just 5-color lands, essentially, we've kept. Everything else I've just turned into shocks, fetches, and then these guys, which are kind of tap lands, but not really. And just check lands. So while these are technically, again, they're tap lands sometimes, most of the time they're not, and so I think that that gives them more flexibility in the draft. Oh, and then the cycle lands, but those are more or less just monocolored cantrips a lot of the time. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of what I changed in terms of mana base, and that should make games faster. It should make it to where you have these cards in your hand and you get to play them on curve. All of those things are much more important to me than the scry from the scry lands and things like that. And I thought that initially that I wanted to have some slower lands since I could run them in this cube, given that it's slower. But I think that realistically, I just personally don't want that. I think that it too negatively affects your tempo and punishes you for taking good fixing, and I don't want that. Other things I've done is I've broken color balance and multicolored. Initially, I wanted to have a balanced cube just to kind of look at things, but I knew that I was going to break that at some point. But the goal was just to kind of see, okay, what works and what doesn't work here, and what colors kind of need more support and which ones don't. The reality is that things like Boros just don't have enough support. Like Firemane of Angel, for instance, is still on the weaker end. She's still in, but she's on the weaker end in terms of like a multicolored card. She like specifically goes in the slower control deck, which is very, very hard to draft and probably means that she should be cut. But then, the other stuff that was in here previously included one of the Aftermath cards, which was pretty weak. And just a lot of overcosted cards that don't really contribute to the game plan that you're trying to achieve in most red or white decks. So I ended up cutting some things to make that a little bit better. We added an Aristocrats theme to support aggro in a different way. So one thing I was disappointed in was that I was able to just run efficient cards and run away with games. So I could just run Searing Spear and I could run Lightning Strike, and those cards are still in, but the other kind of generic aggro cards, those have been more or less cut in favor of this Aristocrats theme, which is kind of how we push our Boros. I'm going to switch views because the curve view is not quite as useful here, I think. So you get things like Insolent Neonate, which is also good in the Reanimator deck. I've added some discard, these Spell Shapers that have like multiple utilities throughout, so essentially I've tried to make it to where instead of having clearly defined aggro, mid-range, and control decks in this cube, you kind of have fast mid-range, slow mid-range, and medium mid-range. And I think that allows it to play more at the power level that I'm looking for. And you also have combo. So there's no control. So like the combo deck is essentially just Reanimator. And then one card that I'm going to cut, and I haven't yet, is Snapcaster Mage. I think it's just a little bit above the power curve. So really what I'm trying to do is decrease the power band, make it to where the games feel like you're playing these decks that are using the graveyard to achieve both card advantage and tempo advantage throughout the game. And now the way that it does both of those things is that you're filling your graveyard so that you can reuse things, but at the same time that graveyard is reducing the cost of your spells. So you're able to gain tempo advantage early with things like where is he? Nemesis Immortals, right? Like Nemesis Immortals or any of these other ones that get reduced for like Ghoul Tree, for having stuff in your graveyard, or having things that benefit from being in your graveyard, like Boneyard Worm, right? So like these green cards in particular, all of them kind of help you cheat mana by being undercosted for the result that you get on the body. But on the flip side, by filling your graveyard, you also get to reuse things like Vengevine. Just looking at green right now to give some examples. So these are the kinds of things that I'm trying to amplify within the cube without it just being generic good stuff, which is more akin to my other cube. So this is a challenge for me because it's not generally the way that I have designed cube, since my other cube is my primary project. So those are just kind of some of the insights that I've been working with. Another thing that has occurred that I was like told by other drafters in that draft was that like milling out was a big problem. So I've inserted Barishi and the blue-white card emergency powers that help you shuffle things in. This should decrease the amount of times that occurs. So I'm playing with like different things, and it's certainly a balancing act, as all cube design is. But ultimately what I've done is I've kind of cut some of the lazy choices that I made in my initial 360, moved up to 450 so I could support aristocrats more fully, while also supporting more of the mid-range decks at different power or speed limits. And yeah, so I'll be posting things with this cube as I kind of go along and change things, draft videos like this one, so that the cube is documented in its evolution over time. And yeah, that should really kind of lend some insight for me into how I cube design, and for viewers into how this cube has changed based on my own desires as a player, as well as the desires of people that I get input from. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and let me know if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what I messed up in the draft, and take a look at the cube. Let me know if there's a card that I missed, something that you really enjoy. You're like, this is my favorite graveyard card ever. Tag it in the subreddit below. I'll take a look at it, and I'll always respond. So again, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.